And so welcome everyone. Today's session is being hosted by Purdue College of Engineering graduate mentoring fellows. So thank you for coming. We really appreciate your participation today. Today we will be talking about mentoring philosophies and unconscious bias when it comes to mentoring relationships. And so if you've been following our mentorship seminar series, the graduate mentoring fellows previously developed an individual development plan. You might have heard of these either through your department as a requirement or as a prior attendance to our seminars. And so we previously discussed that IDPs can be a mentoring tool to help you as a student learn how to understand what are your needs and your goals through your graduate program so that you can have better communication with your mentors like advisors or research PIs. And so we did have 2 seminars before for if you've been following our seminar series, and we talked a little bit more about how to use these IDPs. But today we want to talk a little bit more about the mentoring philosophy side as a tool. And so now that I've mentioned, these mentoring philosophies, you might be asking yourself, well, does that mean that I have to be a philosopher? And no, it's more about assessing what your beliefs are as a mentor. How you view mentorship and why it's important to you. And to me, it's more about a balance between your needs and your wants with your resources that you can provide. And I think this discussion is very important because mentors actually pop up everywhere in our careers. So we might be mentors as graduate students when we mentor undergrads in our research projects or their research projects that they might have. And if we're a postdoc or later on, we're still mentoring either undergrads or graduate students. And then later on, it doesn't really matter if we go into academia or industry. It's really relevant to still become a mentor. You might mentor someone at work, or you might mentor your students later on if you do decide to pursue a career in academia. And so a little bit about unconscious bias. We don't really understand sometimes what they are, but it's basically a synonym of saying they're stereotypes. It's a way of perceiving how people should be, either by their identity or by their attitude, and it might hinder how we mentor people. And so this might be a way that you might perceive sometimes that your advisor may have stereotypes against you, expectations that you don't really understand. And so today we want to have a conversation about how to mitigate these unconscious biases as well. And so today we have a panel of 4. We have Virginia Booth-Womack she's the director of MEP. We also have Dr. Zach Haas today in person, who will be joining us up front momentarily. He's a professor from the Industrial Engineering Department and School of Nursing. We also have Dr. David Bitterberg. He is from Centerville University. He's an associate professor from the Civil Engineering Department. And we also have a graduate student in our panel from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, who's also previously been the ship director for their chapter for the past 4 years. So if we could have a round of applause to introduce our panelists, that'd be great. Thank you. So today I want to start the conversation I briefly already mentioned how we graduate mentoring fellows have been working on improving mentorship relationships on campus between you and your advisors, you and undergrads, things like that. So to our panelists today, I want to start the conversation by understanding a little bit more about briefly, why is mentoring important to you? And I'll go ahead and start with our in-person speaker and then let everyone else, whoever would like to go online as well.
Thank you, Emily. Emily was kind enough to provide the questions ahead of time, so I wrote myself some notes. So why is mentoring important to me? There was 3 things I wrote down. One, my PhD advisor said, this is the fun part of the job. I didn't believe him when he said it, but now that I have a similar job, I agree. It is fun. The second one is I had a lot of good mentors that invested in me, and I can see how big of an impact it had on my ability to succeed, and I would like to pay it forward. And then along that same line, when I think about having impact on the world, there's a lot of things we can do with research, and that feels very obvious how that impact can be. But then when I think about investing in individuals and their professional career, it feels a lot like a spread of impact. If I think of investing in 10 individuals who then go on to do good things wherever they're at, their profession, their career is better, their community is better, their families are probably better off. And if those 10 invest in 10 and those 10 invest in 10, it isn't long before over the course of time, the impact is just massive. So that's why mentoring is important to me.
I would say it's important to me. I love teaching, and I would describe mentorship as kind of teaching in its most effective form. It's really being able to help somebody grow in a relational way. It really lets that process be more targeted and timely than just classroom teaching, I think, to actually have that relationship one-on-one with a person, with a student. And then ultimately, I think what Zachary said about impact is really the big part of it as well. We're talking about deep impact rather than just broad impact on a lot of students. So I think that's something that I really value about it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. And in answer to the question, I believe mentoring is important because especially when you're taking on a new direction in life, there are a lot of things that may cause anxiety. You can get stuck along the way, and it's always good to have a more knowledgeable other that's willing to help you set guideposts and help you navigate from where you are to where you're trying to go. I do think it's important to know the answers to where are you trying to go, what do you want to accomplish in order for mentoring to work smoothly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invite, Emily. I appreciate you thinking of me to be on this panel. So to answer the question, mentoring is important to me because I feel that as a student, there are things that we just don't know that we don't know. And that's where mentors come in to help us possibly make things easier. And it also has to do a lot with goal setting, I would say. And having someone by your side to help guide you with those goals is going to be very important for your personal, your academic, and your professional growth. And so mentoring overall is going to be very impactful in the long term for somebody, not just the mentor, but also yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all of your responses. So the next question I have is, how do you currently define your mentoring philosophy? And for this question, I'll go ahead and start first online and then segue in person.
I can go first. So to me, my philosophy is all about exposure. And this means having the opportunity to show somebody something that I know of that may help support them in their goals. And for example, what I do here at Illinois is I run a mentoring program that pairs graduate students with undergraduates. Sorry for my cat. But in this program, my goal is to give the undergraduates exposure through their graduate mentors. And that way they learn about graduate school, the benefits of an advanced degree, and learning about the things that their mentors may have or could have done better so that they could be better than their mentors. So not only about the exposure of new things to them, but the exposure of lessons learned.
I guess I can tap in on that. I think one very important thing in a mentoring relationship is for the mentee and the mentor to know their mentoring philosophy, similar to what Federico mentioned. There's got to be a strategy, and knowing what motivates a mentee. If I have a mentee in my office, I want to know what motivates them, what are their goals? How do they see my role in helping them achieve those goals? Don't want to spend a lot of time trying to figure it out, but I do want to be able to see where I'm a good fit for the mentee in achieving the goals that they've set. So I think you have to just start out with your own mentoring philosophy. As a mentee, what are you looking for in a mentor? And as a mentor, I need to know, what am I really clear on giving and sharing, and how can I help a student? The end goal for me is student success, but the student has to define what success means.
I think I would define my mentoring philosophy as clear the path. I have the goal of wanting to meet students where they are, try to help them understand their own goals and values. And then it's oftentimes a lot of trying to clear away misconceptions or barriers that are in the way for them moving forward. And then it's all about either encouraging them or maybe helping walk through some of those steps with them. I also don't really think it's kind of part of my mentoring philosophy. I don't really know that I think mentoring relationships have an end date quite like a class does. I think that relationship's going to change as it should, as circumstances change. But my mentoring philosophy is that I try to stay reasonably active and available in whatever ways I can to those that I've started walking down a path with.
Thank you.
So I wrote down 4 words for this one. One of them, David already mentioned for question 1, relational. So I expect it to be inefficient to be a mentor. I expect to need to spend time having regular touch points of some kind. I think David also mentioned there needs to be some exposure. They need to see the different sorts of things that I'm working on if it relates to what they're working on. I need to learn them. I need to know about them. I mean, those things that they're comfortable sharing. Virginia talked a lot about their goals. I think that's very important. Just because I think they need to do something doesn't mean they need to do something. Part of the reason my career took a particular turn was because I told one mentor I wanted to do a certain something. And then when he was replaced in my life, I forgot to tell the next one that that's what I wanted. And so there was a shift, right? That communication is very important. And then another part of that is that I don't consider the relationship to be performance-based of the mentee. So I consider the basis of the relationship to be my ability to help, not their ability to do things for me. And so that helps me not fall into sort of an exploitative relationship with the mentee. And then other words, patience. When someone's growing, we need to revisit the same topic. Maybe they didn't believe me the first time. Maybe they didn't understand the first time or the second or the third, and that's okay. Intentional, so that several of the others talked about goal setting. So here are the expectations, making them clear, making sure that we have something to move towards. And then again, self-sacrificing. If I'm going to mentor, it can't be for my own sake. Otherwise, it's not going to be as beneficial for the mentee. Now, often in the academic setting, as mentors, we get something out of it besides just building relationships. You know, PhD students produce papers, we get to be on the papers. There's things that come out of it, but that can't be the primary basis, in my opinion.
So out of this question, I want to echo 2 things. One is we have 4 speakers and they just clearly define their mentoring philosophy very differently. That means that a mentor isn't a one fits one for everyone else. We adapt, we change. And the second point that was made was we have to have some sort of understanding of what our mentees' expectations are. So I hope that your takeaway from today is to understand that, you know, when you're trying to be a good mentor, you also have to be understanding of your mentee. And as graduate students, we are the mentee right now. So when we try to really echo our needs to our mentors, then they'll become better mentors to us as well. So with that, I want to segue into everyone has their own mentoring philosophy, but how do we get to that point? So the second question is, the third one is how have your prior either positive or negative mentorship experiences as the mentee impacted your mentoring philosophy? And I'll start in person first.
Sounds good. Thanks, Emily. So I'll talk about 3 briefly. My PhD advisor, my RA advisor, that's how I got through school, separate individuals, and then my postdoc advisor. So my PhD advisor was always really patient with me. So I'm a statistician by training. And if you get into that, there's these 2 branches, frequentist and Bayesian, and they're different paradigms. And so I was a frequentist and he was a Bayesian. And so to do things, he had to explain things over and over and over again until I understood. And just how patient he was with me. You know, he never once said, you know, we talked about this last week, because we often had, but he was very patient with me, and I really appreciated that. The second one, the RA advisor, was really generous with the opportunities that she set me up with to be an author. And I really appreciated that. And then the third one, my postdoc advisor, we worked together a long time with a lot of government entities. And so we'd go out and we'd meet with them and we'd present things. And early on, my work was, mediocre relative to the needs of the project. And so there'd be delays because I forgot a semicolon in this code, or I set a variable to 0 when it should have been missing, right? And so everything has to be redone. And in those meetings, no one else but my postdoc advisor knew whose fault it was. By the time he would get done talking in those meetings, you would have thought I was the best guy on the team. And so these outside entities, they would listen to me, they would value my expertise. So by the time I grew into it and was good at it, they hadn't discounted me. So those were things that I really appreciated, just how much they went to bat for me. They set me up to be successful. They took blame when maybe I should have been the one taking the blame, but because of the power structure, they shielded me from some of those things. So that had a big impact on my philosophy.
Thank you. Online, whoever wants to go first.
Sure, I can jump in. I was pretty withdrawn as a student, so I wouldn't say that I had a lot of kind of direct correlation with how I try to interact with students now. But that, in some ways, I think helps me to recognize that you can't just mentor the people who are necessarily overt in their desire for it, but perhaps seeking out some of those who may be a little bit more withdrawn and making sure they're aware of that opportunity when it exists. But I would say also for some of those who I've had in my life who have acted as mentors at different times, more outside of school, I would say. But I can really recall how those mentors really helped add clarity to moments of confusion that I had. And I think that's something that I try to carry into the mentoring relationship.
Ms. Womack, would you like to respond next?
Sure. So this is a pretty good question, I think, for me. So we're comparing our role as a mentor with what we experienced when we were the mentee. Is that correct? Okay. Well, my answer is probably not going to be your tradition. And I don't know who's in the room. We didn't discuss who the audience is, and that makes us blinded. We don't really know who we're talking to. Can you give me just a snapshot of who's in the room? Are they all PhD students?
So we currently have a mixture of postdocs, PhDs, and a couple of faculty members in the room.
Ooh. Okay, see, that changes my answer immediately. No, so I'm going to answer the question the best way I can. I'm currently in a PhD program. Probably the oldest PhD student at Purdue. And so even though I still serve as a role in my professional work at Purdue, and I'm a full-time employee, I take my classes, one class per semester. I'm not in a hurry. I'm just going one step at a time. And in my mentee relationship now as a PhD student, whose advisors are old enough to be my kids, or maybe even grandkids if I stretched it, the way I have to position myself, it requires me to look at my own biases and how I view other people's opinions and the advice they're giving me. I'm looking through a lens of a couple of decades of experience, especially my research topic is dealing in engineering education, in particular, African-American females in engineering leadership. That's sort of the slice that I'm looking at. So I've run into my own biases, my own prejudice, my own issues that prevents me from really hearing what my advisor is trying to share with me, trying to help me with. And that's been an eye-opening experience for me. I've had to step back and really separate how I view others' opinions and how I articulate my experiences and my work. So I'm in a mixed bag of switching, code switching, personality switching, mentor-mentee. And at the same time, I have students that come to me and see me as a mentor. So I'm just in a different world, and I can say that it's circular in that being a mentor sort of informs how I should be as a mentee. And in both places, I have to embrace the vulnerability that you feel when you expose your real struggle to someone, and hearing them and valuing their opinion and being able to isolate what's happening that's connected to your own emotions and what's happening that's really connected to how you move through the process you're going through. So I just think both ends inform the other, and both places, as a mentor and as a mentee, there are vulnerabilities that we have to be able to navigate and not shut ourselves off when we run into those spaces.
Thank you. So for Federico, I'm going to twist the question a little because you're currently a graduate student. You mentioned that you're leading a huge effort of a mentoring program at your school for students in engineering. So what has motivated you to take such a big role as a mentor for other graduate students?
So for my role right now, so we are actually in our third iteration of this program, so 3 years in now, and part of it is the research effort, and we recently submitted a paper to ASEE to study the interactions between undergraduates and graduate students that all identify as Hispanic in engineering, to see what are the positive and negative factors. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this effort is because I want to make it known that the community is there. One of the challenges for the Hispanic engineering community is that we're not very visible. And having a program like this to support students that identify as part of this community, it's very important for visibility to be there so that they feel supported, they can figure out the resources that they need, even amongst each other, not necessarily just from the university, but among each other. So the community itself becomes a resource. And I felt, because I had this experience and the background of these challenges, I could bring forth that support to these students. And being a PhD candidate as in my 5th year, I feel that, there are things that I would have wanted to know as a first-year graduate student, or even as an undergraduate student in engineering. And I help the undergrads by exposing them to the mentors, and the mentors' jobs are to give them or point them towards the resources that they might need, give them advice, share stories about what they could have done better. So that's where my philosophy plays in. But personally, one of the things that I experienced as an undergraduate, one of my mentors, Dr. Renetta Tall, she always highlighted this feature of mentoring called inclusive mentoring. And that is to understand the challenges of communities that you may identify with or others that you would like to support. And, I appreciate the audience there, the postdocs, the graduate students, the faculty, because that shows that you're making the effort to be here to listen to others that may help you implement strategies for your own mentoring skills. And I think that's very important. Similarly, part of the inclusive mentoring is making the effort to go out there and learn furthermore from what others may have done, because it might be better than what you currently do. And if you can put those better practices into what you do, it could end up being better for you as a mentor. People can see you as, someone more reliable, someone more understanding. And just practicing that is very important to me. So that's why I went for this.
To repeat myself, so the next question I'll only ask in person. So Dr. Haas, are there any other components that you haven't heard that have influenced your mentoring philosophy?
Yeah, there are. Since we're out of time, I'll go quick. So most of my underlying principles of my philosophy tie back to the Christian gospel. So this idea of justice and unmerited favor coexisting. And so how that plays out for me is on the justice side, there are things that need to be done. You know, if you want a PhD, here are the things you have to do. If you want to be a researcher, here are the skills that you need to have, right? And holding someone to a standard and requiring them to do these things is part of the job. On the other hand, even though they're presumably less farther along in their career than me, or less capable in certain ways at the time, I can still treat the individual as if they are fully a colleague and fully capable of doing my job, that they deserve the credit, that they deserve to be respected, that their time is valuable. And so I find that tension to be helpful throughout the different ways that I approach mentoring.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So the next question is for both faculty members on our panel. So is there a particular mentee-mentor relationship that epitomizes your mentoring philosophy so far? I think it's great to hear how you structure your mentoring philosophy, but for us, it would be helpful to have an example of it being practiced. Do we want to go online first? Okay.
Sure. So I don't know about epitomizes, but I think I call the relationship I have with Rachel Gare there at Purdue a good example. And Rachel's the connection, how I got invited to be a part of this panel today. We've remained in contact for a pretty long time now, as I had her as an undergraduate student years ago. And we've walked through some challenges together, but it's been really encouraging to me to see her achieve a lot of her goals, especially when they're at Purdue. I think I mentioned before my philosophy of path clearing, and I think that there were definitely some moments of path clearing that happened with our relationship, and just trying to help Rachel with coming up with her goals and figuring out what it would take to take some of those obstacles out of the way. Yeah, I think that's probably the one relationship that comes to mind first.
Thank you. Dr. Kress?
Sure, thank you. So there's several I could name, but I'll name one I haven't so far. Dr. Wojciech Wojcinski from Case Western. He's passed away now, but he was a full professor, and as an undergrad, I emailed him not knowing how things work, asking for advice. There was an undergraduate structure for advising I was not aware, so I emailed the department head and asked him for advice, and he met with me. And because he happened to be a tennis player and I happened to be asking about sports statistics, he took me on as an advisee. And he was always doing these things, and this was beyond his job description, right? It wasn't required, but he was always looking for ways to help me. And so he comes back one summer from Poland and he says, I was visiting my friend. He wrote a paper about soccer in the 1940s when the war broke out. And I think we could do something similar with American baseball when they had a strike. Right? He sets me up with a project. He was inviting people to come give sports talks to the seminar of 5 people that we had because the program was very small. But just how much he held, even though it really didn't do him much good other than maybe he enjoyed it, just how much he was looking out for my interest. And there was one day we're meeting, and this is kind of epitomizes the idea. He was distraught about something, and so we were talking about it, and he said, well, I have this PhD student, I'm on his committee. He's done his dissertation, he's got a job, he's got a family, everything's lined up. But one of the committee members won't sign off because of this little detail. And he was really upset about it because he felt like it was not in the student's best interest. And it was a revelation to me because I didn't realize that professionally you were allowed to care that much about the well-being of your students, right? I didn't know how it worked. So that to me was pretty impactful.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I think we've sort of heard it throughout your responses today, but I still want to ask it. So how central is the identity of being a mentor to your professional identity overall? And I think we'll start off with Ms. Womack first.
So as a program director for the Minority Engineering Program, we all know that programs like this focus on creating or sustaining or cultivating supporting environments that are inclusive and that support students' belongingness, whatever that might mean. So I think there's just an inherent mentorship there. You know, you expect when parents come with their high school seniors that are ready to go to college, they want to know that there's a place their son or daughter can find as a type of community or home, especially if they're from backgrounds that have historically been minoritized. We have our challenges here at Purdue, as other universities have. So I think there's just a automatic expectation that I am a mentor, and I can trace my history. I was at Purdue back in the day, and there was a MEP program here then, and the program director was, I can say, the reason why I stuck it out. And she was very, very present in life. And I find myself knowing that I can't fill her shoes, although I'm coming behind her. I'm walking my own path, and I want to be known by students as someone that supported their time here at Purdue. And I'm learning as well a lot from the students and from faculty and staff around the university that are as committed as I am, but in different ways. Collaborate, we work well together to find out what we can do different as we diversify more and more of the Purdue engineering community.
I can go next. So for me, it's part of my professional identity. I would say maybe about, well, I won't assign a percentage, but I consider it a very important part of who I am as an engineer, but also as a student. And that's because let's say I attended my first mentoring workshop in college to learn about what it is all about and why it's important. And since then, I have attended a lot of workshops. I've had many conversations with my own mentors, and I've invested a lot of time into this. So much that I brought forth this mentoring program. And that allowed me to not only put into practice what I've learned, but also learn about what people, the variance across people's personalities and what works for them. And also being able to adjust to where students are. So not only as a mentor, but, you know, for example, as being a teaching assistant, right? I have to work with students that don't have the full background as some other students in the same course. And learning to work with people from different backgrounds in this case is a skill that not only myself as an engineer needs to have to be able to communicate with people, but also to be able to adjust to what their needs are and understand, are there any themes among those challenges, and address those as needed. And for myself as a mentor, these things are important to know so that I can approach people and be not only just more understanding, but have the ability to understand why these things happen, or maybe anticipate things for the next year when I have to mentor new people.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question and ask only our faculty members to answer. So how do you ensure that you balance your own mentoring philosophy with the expectations of a mentee? And we'll start in person.
Thank you, Emily. So it's a new adventure each time. I mean, if the person happens to line up well with or be a certain combination of things I've seen before, but that doesn't happen very often, then it's easy. But if they view things in a different way, if the way they view time, for example, or the way they view expectations or achievement is different, it just takes time, a lot of listening, a lot of patience. But if I've committed to that relationship, then, we'll figure out a way to make it work. But yeah, a lot of listening.
Online, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really good, and I'd echo that same sentiment. I'm going to add to it the concept of just be humble. You really have to elevate the other person in your mind and reduce yourself if that relationship is going to be effective and as productive.
I'm gonna move on to unconscious bias before we end. So how do you try to reduce the impact of bias in your mentoring relationships? And it would be great if we could have Federico's perspective and one more person.
So unconscious bias is very difficult to address because it's unconscious. And one of the things that people should learn is that you may not know what your unconscious biases are until you reflect on what problems it causes. So take time to know what potential problems could occur out of the things you view people as, and try to address those behaviors. And again, these things only happen after the fact that they happen. The other side of it is how it impacts my mentoring relationships. So I would say this mainly impacts the way that I mentor people, not necessarily me going to mentors or to find mentors, because it comes with the challenge of seeing where people come from, where their backgrounds are, maybe their lack of exposure or their lack of expertise on a certain subject is. I may view that as, let's say, how do you not know this? But that's only because I've been exposed to it before. Like, I can't say I expect people to know everything that I know, because they don't come from the same place that I have, or have probably made the same efforts or investments that I have. And so you can reduce that bias to say, to be more inclusive in this way. You can ask them, do you need help with something? Or have you thought of this? So those are better examples to approach your mentoring relationship better.
Thank you. Ms. Womack, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, I'll take the question. Unconscious bias, I think Federico nailed it. You don't know you have it. And it's hard to embrace it when you can't see it. And if someone tries to show you you have it, you will defend yourself. And so you have to really intentionally want to know what that bias is. I teach a class with Bill Oakes over in Armstrong. And the class is set up to help students sort of to introduce them to diversity as incoming freshmen. Some are from other countries. So we bounce a lot of ideas off of each other. And Bill and I have come to trust each other. And he will come to me and tell me a situation that he thinks may not have been handled right. And he'll say, was that racist? And I'll say, heck yeah, it was racist. And we'll both bust out laughing. He said, oh, how was it racist? And I'll just break it down. I give him scenarios and he'll look at me and we'll go back and forth. But he trusts my opinion. And I'm not trying to judge him, because I've had situations too. And with this class, I remember I wanted the students to take the Harvard implicit bias test. So I said, well, let me take it right quick, make sure I know what I'm asking the students to do, because they may not be comfortable. I don't want it to feel, uncomfortable for them. So I took the implicit bias test and, I got my results back and they said I was biased against Black people. And I was like, no, that can't be. How can I be biased against Black people? And I started studying and reading about what this thing measures. And I am harder on African Americans than I am any other ethnicity. I want them to be perfect. I want them to prove that they can do the, and I started thinking, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's not fair to the students. So I had to really back up and look at Virginia and say, what are you doing? You know, why do they have to be perfect? You know, why can't they be their normal selves like everyone else? And of course, there are all kinds of things that went on in my mind, but the point was I was willing to at least take the test and see what it says about me and embrace it and find ways that I can change how I deal with students. And so I think that's what all of us, that's the challenge we have. Do we really want to know what our unconscious bias is? And if it's exposed, will we embrace it or do something about it?
Thank you. So I have one more question for our panelists, but I'll open up to all of you. If anyone has any questions, it's your moment to ask. No? Okay. So my last question is, what advice do you have for those who may have had a mentoring experience be hindered by unconscious bias? So I'm speaking on behalf of what advice do you have for a graduate student who feels like they have been stereotyped by their advisor or that their advisor has these unconscious biases? I'll start, Kristen.
Sure. Thanks, Emily. So 2 things I would advise. One is forgiving them for it. Because if the second half would be to rebuke them for it. So one, if you don't forgive them, if you're going to talk to them about it, you're going to go for vengeance, right? That's our natural tendency, or at least what it seems to be our natural tendency. And that's just going to increase the amount of hurt and animosity. So if you can forgive them, if it doesn't hold you hostage, you'll be better off. You won't be bitter, which is good, right? Because bitterness consumes us. It doesn't do anything to the other person. And 2, the most loving thing you can do is rebuke the person for it, because a lot of times they probably won't even be aware of it, right? And if they're not aware of it, they can't change it. And if they don't change it, then any future relationship that they have is going to be impacted by it. So that would be my advice, is to forgive and then to lovingly rebuke.
Online?
Well, I'll jump in and just say it's important to embrace another person's reality and truth as they demonstrate it to you. And I don't think it's our job to change people, but people come in their authentic selves. And sometimes you may see something that appears to be biased towards you. I don't think it's wrong to ask a question or to share how whatever happened made you feel and see if you were wrong in your assessment. Because I've had to share, wow, when this happened, I actually felt this way about it. And I'm not sure if that was your intention, but that's how I received it. Am I reading this wrong? And sometimes that can backfire on you. To Stephen's point, you have to be careful how you do that if it's your mentor. But if you have the right spirit and attitude, I think your mentor is going to want to know how he or she makes you feel in a conversation. And then you can start working from there to see if you can figure out how to work around it.
Thank you. So with that, I think I'm going to conclude the panel questions so that we give time for everyone to head out. So if I could please have a round of applause for our panelists today. We have one more quick announcement. Okay, in honor of today being International Women's Day, we will have our upcoming seminar be about mentoring graduate women. So we often feel like women have different needs than men, and we are often the minor group in graduate school. So come listen to us about how do we approach mentoring graduate women, either as a man and we're mentoring our undergrads who identify as a woman, or how to voice more our needs as a woman. So thank you. And if you would like to RSVP, we already have a link for that. And we will also be serving food as well today. So thank you all for coming. Thank you.